Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is quite literally going to change how you look at your entire day. We're looking at James Clear's massive hit, Atomic Habits. We're taught that life-changing results require massive, overnight overhauls. But Clear argues exactly the opposite. His core thesis is that true transformation comes from tiny behaviors repeated consistently. In this explainer, we'll see exactly how these small habits compound over time. We'll explore why you absolutely need to focus on your systems and your identity rather than just setting big end goals. Plus, we'll break down Clear's brilliantly simple four-part framework to make building good habits inevitable and breaking bad ones basically effortless. We're talking about making them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying. So get ready to totally revamp your daily routine. To really wrap our heads around why this works, we've got to look at the math of compounding. Think of habits as the compound interest of self-improvement. It's like if you can manage to get just 1% better each day for a whole year, you don't just get a little better. You end up 37 times better by the time the year is up. On the flip side, if you get 1% worse each day, you basically decline right down to nearly zero. It's this tiny, almost invisible daily shift, right? But as the math shows us here, over time, the gap between the trajectory of success and the trajectory of failure becomes absolutely massive. So, you're probably wondering, how do we actually get that 1% improvement? Well, Clear gives us this profoundly simple four-part framework for behavior change, which he calls the four laws. To build a good habit, you have to do four things: make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. And here's the really brilliant part. If you want to kick a bad habit, you just flip those laws entirely. You make it invisible, unattractive, hard, and unsatisfying. These four pillars right here are the literal toolkit you need to create huge long-term transformation. Okay, here's our blueprint for this explainer. We're going to cover the power of systems, how identity shapes habits, designing your environment, the 2-minute rule, sustaining long-term motivation, and we'll wrap it all up with a rapid-fire 60-second recap. Let's get into it. Section 1. The power of systems. Okay, let's dive into this. Since we were kids, we've basically been told that the absolute best way to get what we want is to set very specific, actionable goals. But what if that's entirely backward? Goals are strictly about the results you want to hit, right? But systems are about the actual processes that lead to those results. And here's the real catch with goal setting. It suffers from a massive case of survivorship bias. Think about it. Every single Olympian wants the gold medal. Every candidate interviewing wants the job. The winners and the losers have the exact same goals. So clearly, the goal itself isn't what sets them apart. It's the system. It's that cycle of continuous, tiny daily improvements that actually makes the difference. James Clear hits the nail on the head when he says, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Section 2, identity shapes your habits. Now we're zooming in a bit. We're moving from the macro view of your daily systems to the internal view of your own self-image. Because listen, if you really want to change your behavior, you absolutely have to look at the beliefs that are driving it. Behavior change actually happens in layers. Most of us mistakenly try to change our habits from the outside in. We focus strictly on the outcome. We say things like, I want to lose weight, or I want to write a book. It is completely outcome-based. But starting there leaves your deep underlying beliefs totally untouched. You're basically trying to force a new behavior while dragging around the exact same identity. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the paradigm shift that happens when you work inside out. With identity-based habits, your entire focus is on who you wish to become rather than what you want to achieve. Your habits are simply how you embody that identity. Think about it. Every time you sit down and write a page, you are a writer. Every time you go to the gym, you are an athlete. Every single action you take is just a tiny vote for the exact type of person you want to become. You aren't just checking off a result, you are literally rewriting your self-image. Let's look at a real-world example of how powerful this is. Imagine two people trying to resist a cigarette. The first person, operating with an outcome focus, turns it down and says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." Notice the language there? They still deeply believe they are a smoker who is just trying to act like a non-smoker. But the second person says, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." Boom. That right there is a total identity shift. They no longer identify with the bad habit at all. True behavior change is actually identity change. Because once your pride gets involved, you will fight tooth and nail to maintain that new habit. Section 3. Designing your environment. Let's shift gears and talk practical application. A lot of the time, we beat ourselves up thinking our bad habits are just a failure of our own willpower. But the reality? Your environment often dictates your choices way more than your raw motivation ever will. Clear points out that highly disciplined people don't necessarily possess some superhuman willpower, they just live in environments with fewer temptations. And the cool thing is, you can be the architect of your own space. Make the cues for your good habits incredibly obvious, and totally hide the triggers for the bad ones. Want to eat healthier? Leave apples right out on the kitchen counter and bury the junk food in the very back of the pantry. Want to guarantee you'll exercise in the morning? Sleep in your workout clothes. It's essentially addition by subtraction. You reduce the friction for the good stuff and add friction to the bad stuff. You make doing the right thing the absolute path of least resistance. Section 4, the 2-minute rule. Next up, we are tackling how to make habits easy so we can finally eliminate procrastination. Look, when we decide to start a new habit, we usually get super hyped and try to do way too much, way too fast. But Clear gives us the 2-minute rule, which says any new habit should take less than 2 minutes to do. Let's say your goal is to run a marathon. Obviously, that is very hard. So scale it down. Step it down to walking 10,000 steps. Still a bit much? Scale it down to walking 10 minutes. Easy. But let's go even further to a 2-minute gateway habit, simply putting on your running shoes. That's it. Very easy. You have to master the simple art of just showing up first. Remember this rule of thumb. A habit must be established before it can be improved. You have to standardize before you can optimize. Section 5. Sustaining long-term motivation. Getting the habit started is one thing, but what about the messy reality of keeping these systems going? Look, life is going to inevitably interrupt you. You're going to get sick, you'll have to travel, or you'll just have a really stressful day. When that happens, you need to remember this absolutely crucial mantra. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. Successful people are not perfect. They just rebound quickly instead of spiraling out of control. If you accidentally eat an entire pizza for lunch, hey, it happens. Don't throw the whole week away. Just make sure your very next meal is a healthy one. Your recovery from failure matters so much more than trying to maintain a perfect streak. So what happens when these habits become routine and, let's face it, kind of boring? Well, that brings us to the Goldilocks rule. Humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are right on the edge of their current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy. If a task is a breeze, you slide right into boredom. If it's overwhelmingly difficult, you slide into failure and anxiety. You want to stay right in that sweet spot, the Goldilocks zone. And here's a hard truth. The greatest threat to your success isn't actually failure. It's boredom. The professionals stick to their schedule even when the novelty wears off, while amateurs let boredom and everyday life get in the way. Section 6, the 60-second recap. We have covered a massive amount of ground today, from the deep psychology of your self-identity all the way to the literal mechanics of arranging your room. So, here is your atomic journey summarized. On day 1, you stop obsessing over some arbitrary finish line, and you build a daily system. By week 1, you stop focusing strictly on outcomes and start acting like the person you wish to become, truly shifting your identity. By month 1, you aren't sweating over willpower anymore because you've redesigned your environment to make good habits screamingly obvious and bad ones totally invisible. And by year 1, you've taken those tiny 2-minute gateway habits and scaled them up. You're keeping yourself challenged right in that Goldilocks zone, and crucially, you are never missing twice. This is exactly how tiny, seemingly insignificant changes compound into remarkable results. So the biggest takeaway here is this. Your life today is basically just the sum total of your habits, which leaves us with one final, pretty vital question to think about. Take a hard look at the architecture of your own daily life right now. Are your current systems actually designed to create the person you wish to become? Because if they aren't, well, you now have the exact blueprint to start redesigning them, 2 minutes at a time. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you in the next one.